Hi there, welcome back to English for Specific Purposes. We are your hosts. I am Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Miss Thatia. მოგესალმებით, კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ჩვენს ტელესკოლაში. მე თათია ვარ, ეს კი დერილია. And the topic of today's lesson is...
We're going to be building more things. We're looking at engineering today.
Again, right, which was a very interesting topic to start. And now we are going on with the topic. But I think that it's time to look at our agenda first. Okay, what's on our agenda, Mr. Daryl?
As you know, we always have a discussion about the topic. We look at vocabulary right after that. That will be connected to the reading task that we have. From the reading task, we will look at grammar. And from there, we will summarize everything and give you homework.
Interesting. გაკვეთილს როგორც ყოველთვის მცირე შესწავლით დავიწყებთ, შემდეგ შევისწავლით ახალ სიტყვებს, რომელიც თემასთან იქნება დაკავშირებული, ასევე ამ თემასთან დაკავშირებულ ტექსტს წავიკითხავთ, ამას მოყვება გრამატიკა. გრამატიკის შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ გაკვეთილს და დავასრულებთ საშინაო დავალებით. Let's get started, Mr. Daryl. We are talking about construction again, and here we have photos of different buildings. Which is your favorite one and why?
Well, from the photos, I'm going to pick the modern-looking one.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like modern buildings?
Yeah, I do like modern-looking buildings.
Okay, unlike me, because I prefer classic style. I like old buildings and ornate ones with which reflect the culture of that country.
You're more of a traditionalist.
It kind of seems to be. Now it's time to move on to the vocabulary, and I think that we are going to study some adjectives to describe different types of buildings, right? Okay. The first word we have is stunning. Stunning is an adjective, and in Georgian it means მომხიბვლელი. So, what is the synonym of stunning, Mr. Daryl?
A synonym of stunning? Well, very attractive.
Very attractive.
And the definition will be something very, very beautiful or extremely beautiful and attractive.
Nice. So, stunning is an adjective, and in Georgian it is მომხიბვლელი. So, can we say stunning view from the balcony, for example?
You've got a stunning view in front of you. You can also refer to a person as well.
Really? Can I say a stunning person, stunning woman?
Stunning woman, yeah.
Really?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So here we have an example. I've never seen a more stunning view in my life.
Sounds like, what's it called, Narikala you have?
Yeah, you're right. So the view from Narikala is really stunning.
It is.
Okay. And what is the next word, Mr. Daryl?
It's an adjective. It's called eye-catching.
Eye-catching is an adjective, and in Georgian it is მიმზიდველი, თვალშისაცემი. And how would you define that word? Is it something that attracts your attention very easily?
Yes, exactly. It's a kind of synonym to stunning, something that attracts your attention.
In a positive way. Okay. So eye-catching is an adjective, and in Georgian it is მიმზიდველი, თვალშისაცემი, and here we have an example. With your advice, we now have an eye-catching and comfortable home. So it means that it's very beautiful, okay?
Do you remember we talked about a word eyesore? It's almost like the opposite of eyesore.
Okay, nice. Now what is the next word we have?
Ornate. Ornate is an adjective.
Ornate is an adjective, as Mr. Daryl has told us, and in Georgian it is მორთული. მრავალი ნატიფი ორნამენტით მორთული. Ornate. So how would you define that word in English, Mr. Daryl?
It's something with a lot of complicated decorations, something that's very fancy to look at.
Yeah, I said that I like ornate buildings. Okay, ornate is an adjective, and in Georgian it is მორთული. მრავალი ნატიფი ორნამენტით მორთული. And here we have an example. It was a room with an ornate ceiling and gold mirrors. It might be a palace, right?
Yeah, something with lots of designs, lots of maybe things that stick out a little bit.
Okay. And what is the next word, Mr. Daryl?
It's an adjective as well. It's iconic. Iconic.
Iconic is an adjective, and in Georgian it is საკულტო. Okay, and here we have an example. These smoke-filled rooms are iconic images of Turkey. So what is the definition of iconic, Mr. Daryl?
Something that's very famous or very popular, but particularly something that represents that time, something that represents an idea or association with that time. So it's a very, very, very important part.
Okay, thank you. Iconic. It's an adjective, and in Georgian it is sakulto, as I said. Okay, and the next word, and I think that this is the final word, is unsightly. Unsightly is an adjective, and in Georgian it is ushno, she'uchedav. So is ugly the synonym of the word unsightly?
It is, you're right. Not attractive, ugly. I guess it's the first word we've looked at today that's more the negative side.
Yeah, okay, so there are some unsightly buildings in the cities, right?
Yeah.
There are, okay. Unsightly, it's an adjective, and in Georgian it is ushno, she'uchedavi, and we have an example here. When open, the garage is an unsightly storeroom. Okay. And I think that we have finished with the introduction of the words, and it's time to practice the words. So we have the sentences with gaps, and we have to choose the right word for the gaps. And I want to be the first to try.
Okay, Ms. Thatya, here's your sentence.
Yeah.
The frames on the pictures are something, you're going to have to choose a word, with flowers and fruit painted in gold.
And the word here must be ornate. And the sentence will look this way. The frames on the pictures are ornate with flowers and fruit painted in gold.
So something very, very complicated in design.
Okay, nice. And now you have to try. I will the sentence for you, and you have to choose the right word. They took pictures not only of the wall, but of then there is a gap, houses the government had wanted to hide. So if you want to hide something, it doesn't look very beautiful, right? So what word can go in the gap?
You're right, that's a big clue that the word has to be unsightly.
Yes, you are right. And the sentence sounds this way. They took pictures not only of the wall, but of the unsightly houses the government had wanted to hide. Okay, and the next one.
These were really beautiful houses, and even more, something, gardens.
So if something is beautiful, and then other thing is even more beautiful, so I can say that it's eye-catching. So it might be like this. These were really beautiful homes, and even more eye-catching gardens.
Well done.
So 2 words, 1 sentence, 1 gap. So let's try. I will read it for you and you have to guess. So a dust storm blanket Sydney. Then there's a gap, Opera House at sunrise. I think that everyone knows about Sydney's Opera House.
That's right.
So it's what kind of building?
Iconic.
Yeah, you're right. So here we have a dust storm blankets Sydney's iconic Opera House at sunrise.
That means it's a building that's really famous and well known by everyone.
And it
Sydney.
Represents the
represents
country.
Something about Sydney or country,
Okay.
the country, yeah.
Okay. And last and a very easy task. 1 word and 1 sentence. So it sounds like this. Nepal is stunning with its wild, untamed landscape. By the way, have you ever been to Nepal?
No, unfortunately, no.
It would be very interesting to go there because they say that it's really an interesting
Stunning place to go to.
Stunning place to go to. And we are right. Okay, and now it's time to move on to the second section, which is reading.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to read about a very interesting project, about a very interesting and well-known city. But before we read the text, I want to just introduce some of the words connected with the text, okay? Shall we start?
Yes, let's start.
What is the first word on our list, Mr. Dero?
It's a verb, and it's to overflow. Overflow.
Overflow is a verb, and in Georgian it is translated as databorva, jebiridan gadmoswa. Overflow. And how would you define that word, Mr. Dero?
Usually it refers to liquids, water or something, that's so filled up in a container that it starts to flow out, fall out.
Okay. And here is an example. Because of the heavy rains, the river overflowed its banks, okay? And what is the next word, Mr. Derill?
Shifting. It's an adjective and it's shifting.
Shifting is an adjective, as Mr. Derill has told us, and in Jordan it is modzravi. So is it something that changes?
Yeah, it's always changing or moving somehow. Shifting.
Okay. So shifting, it's an adjective. In Georgian it means modzravi. And here we have an example. They lost their way in the shifting sands of the Sahara. So we know that the sands in Sahara are shifting, right?
Moving around because of the wind, moving around from day to day as well. So the shifting sands.
Okay, nice. The next word is landscape. Landscape is a noun, and in Georgian it means landschafti. And I think that I need your help to define the word, Mr. Derill.
Landscape, it's a large area of the countryside, but particularly in reference to how attractive it is. We often use that word when we find something attractive.
Yeah, we can say beautiful landscape, right? Okay. Landscape, it's a noun, and in Jordan it is translated as landschafti. And here we have an example. The cathedral dominates the landscape for miles around. Okay, and the next word we have is masterpiece. Masterpiece is a noun, and in Georgian it's translated as sheedevri. And how would you define that word, Mr. Derill?
Masterpiece is often an artist's greatest work, or just a work done with great skill. So we can have both ways.
Okay, so masterpiece is a noun, and in Georgian it is sheedevri. And we have an example here. The new opera house was a real masterpiece. So it means that it was skillfully done and very beautiful. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. And our next word is?
Pump. To pump. It's a verb. And what is the Georgian definition?
The Georgian definition of the word is amotumva. To pump. It's a verb. And how would you define that word in English, Mr. Derill?
This is when you force liquid or gas to move somewhere else by the force you apply.
Okay. Pump. Amotumva. And here we have an example. Our latest machine can pump 100 gallons a minute.
Oh, very useful.
Powerful
if
one.
There's a flood or something.
Yeah, okay. And before we read the text, I want to ask Mr. Derill, as the text is about Venice, I want to ask you, have you ever visited this city?
I visited Rome, but not Venice, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah.
It's worth visiting, you know.
Oh, you've been there?
Yeah, I've been there, and it's a fantastic place. But I had some kind of bad feeling when I was there, because just the city is absolutely brilliant, beautiful, with picturesque, places, stunning views and the buildings, and just I know that the city is sinking, and it's endangered. So I was worried that one day no one can see the city anymore. So do you think that engineers are thinking to find some solutions to save the city?
Yeah, I think it's probably a problem that's on a lot of people's minds. And they do have their best engineers working on this problem right now, which I think is related to our text.
Yes, so we are going to read and find out what kind of solutions the engineers are thinking about to save the city.
It sounds like a huge problem, so I wonder how they might fix it.
Okay, now let's start. So, since their earliest beginnings, humans have devised ways to improve their living conditions. Over time, we have developed incredibly clever solutions to overcome challenges of limited space and extreme climates and geography, creating stronger, more efficient buildings and faster, more convenient forms of transportation. Today's engineers and architects seem able to create the impossible, building higher, longer, more complex structures than ever before. Population growth, climate change, and aging urban infrastructures are some of the dilemmas affecting the world today. In some places, these concerns have brought about some of the biggest, most daring engineering projects ever attempted, projects that will redesign the course of nature.
It's really amazing what these engineers can think up and do.
Yeah, really. Now let's move on.
The Italian city of Venice is known as one of the most beautiful and romantic places in the world. Venice is famous for its rich cultural heritage beautiful architecture and Renaissance art, and famous for floods. Since written records about Venice's water levels began in 1872, floods have been a part of its history. The city is situated in a lagoon in the Adriatic Sea, and experts say it has sunk as much as 23 centimeters in the last century. As a result of the shifting landscape, the city currently endures flooding about 60 times a year, according to some estimates. Since 1966, when record-high flood waters caused the destruction of numerous historical landmarks and artistic masterpieces, Venetians have been debating what to do.
They really have to think about what to do. Okay. The Tide Barrier Project, also known as the MOSE project, was begun in 2003 by Silvio Berlusconi, who is Italy's former prime minister. It consists of 78 underwater steel gates, each around 28 meters high, 20 meters wide, and weighing 300 tons. The gates are attached to the seafloor. When a dangerously high tide is predicted, compressed air is pumped underneath the gates, causing them to rise and stop the seawater from overflowing into the city. Many people believe the project is the only way to save Venice. Others argue that it will have negative effect on wildlife and simply won't stop the flooding. So controversial ideas.
Controversial idea, and it's difficult to control nature, I think. That's the lesson from here.
Yeah.
If successful, this project might have amazing positive potential. It might be an example of today's where there's a will, there's a way attitude. There will be many challenges and great obstacles to overcome along the way. Will it really be possible for humans to tame the sea? Perhaps. Only time will tell. But we can hope for the best while we still have the energy to dream big.
Okay, very interesting ending. So let's hope for the better, right? Let's hope that this project will help and will save the city.
So that you don't feel so unsure the next time you visit Venice.
Okay. Now I think that it's time to practice and to see how well we remember the text. And for this we have statements, and we have to decide whether the statements are true or false. And I will check your memory, and I'll read the statement, and you have to tell me whether it's true or false, okay? So the first statement we have is, flooding was not common for Venice in the past. What do you think? Is it true or false?
That sounds very, very false.
Yes, it's false, because we read, since written records about Venice water levels began in 1872, floods have been a part of its history. So you remember it quite well.
Let's check your memory now.
Okay, I'm ready.
Venetians are concerned about the fact that the city continues to sink and want to solve the problem.
I think that it's true. Because I remember we read, since 1966, when record high flood waters caused the destruction of numerous historical landmarks and artistic masterpieces, the nations have been debating what to do. Okay, and the next statement is for you, Mr. Derill. So the gates attached to the seabed will prevent the water from overflowing into the city.
Yes, according to the engineering project that we read about, that sounds like it must be true.
And you're right, it's true. And we read, the gates are attached to the seafloor. When a dangerously high tide is predicted, compressed air is pumped underneath the gates, causing them to rise and stop the seawater from overflowing into the city. So you are right, and the next statement we have, and I have to try.
You have to try it. Let's check your memory. Everyone is sure that Tide Barrier project will save the city.
It's false, because I remember that there were controversial ideas. Some people believed that it will help, but some felt negative about the project. So we read, many people believe the project is the only way to save Venice. Others argue that it will have negative effect on wildlife and simply won't stop the flooding.
Your memory is excellent.
Okay, it turns out. And I think that we have finished with the reading part, and it's time for grammar. And what is the topic of today's grammar, Mr. Derill?
It's relative clauses.
Relative clauses again, but today we're going to concentrate on non-defining relative clauses, as I remember. Let's quickly revise what relative clauses are and then concentrate on non-defining relative clauses, okay? So
relative clauses, as you remember, they give us extra information about something or someone, or identify which particular thing or person we're talking about. They're often introduced by a few words, which I hope you can read for us.
Yes, the words are which for things and animals, as we said at the previous lesson, who for people, when for time, where for place, why for reason, whom for people as the object of the relative clause, and whose for possession. Now let's talk about non-defining relative clauses. Non-defining relative clause simply gives us more information about something or someone. The sentence makes complete sense without the relative clause. So it's extra information which is not necessary, okay? So the sentence without non-defining relative clause can make sense, right? Usually makes sense. And
let's go with a bit more information. Non-defining relative clauses are separated from the rest of the sentence by commas, unlike the previously looked at defining relative clauses. This building, comma, which was built in the 19th century, comma again, is a masterpiece. That's how
I think that the sentence without non-defining relative clause still makes sense. For example, this building is a masterpiece.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Note that we cannot leave out the word which introduced the relative clause, and we cannot use the word that instead. For example, you can't say the following: this building, comma, was built in the 19th century, comma, is a masterpiece. That would be completely incorrect. This building, comma, that was built in the 19th century is a masterpiece.
That's again a wrong sentence.
Incorrect.
Because we cannot replace which by that.
With that, yeah.
Unlike defining relative
clauses, yes. And one last thing, let me say, which, the word which, can refer back to the whole of the sentence. So we finally finished the construction, comma, which made us all happy.
So which made us all happy refers to the whole sentence. I mean, the fact that we have finished construction makes us all happy, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I think it's time to practice. And we have two separate sentences, and our challenge is to combine these two sentences and make one complex sentence using non-defining relative clauses, okay? I will try, I'll be the first, and here we have two sentences. Microsoft has a lot of power in the world of computers. And the second sentence is, that annoys some people. Now I will try to combine these two sentences, and I would say it like this. Microsoft has a lot of power in the world of computers, which annoys some people.
Mm-hmm. And you had the comma right in there.
Yes. Now it's your turn, Mr. Derill.
Sure. Now we have two sentences. They are, the euro replaced a number of national currencies. It was introduced in January of 2002. Now, if you wanted to combine them, this is how you do it, with the help of a comma. The euro, comma, which was introduced in January of 2002, comma again, replaced a number of national currencies.
So which was introduced in January 2002 is non-defining relative clause, which gives extra information about the subject. Okay. Now it's my turn. So Prince Charles is heir to throne. His wife was Princess Diana. And I would combine these two sentences like this. Prince Charles, whose wife was Princess Diana, is heir to the throne of England. So whose wife was Princess Diana is again a non-defining relative clause, which is separated by commas.
Mm-hmm. I think Prince Charles is still waiting to become king.
Yes.
Here's the next sentence, the next example. Parts of Buckingham Palace are open to the public. It is where the Queen lives. Now, if you wanted to combine those two with the help of a comma, again, you would say parts of Buckingham Palace, comma, where the Queen lives, comma, are open to the public.
Right. Again, where the Queen lives is non-defining relative clause separated by commas. And I think that we have finished the lesson and it's time to wrap it up.
Well, we had a look at vocabulary, as you remember.
Yeah, I remember the vocabulary quite clearly.
A lot of positive words in the beginning section.
Stunning,
Iconic.
eye-catching, iconic, yes. Now I can describe buildings easily.
If you love them.
Okay.
Then
I remember the negative one.
The one, single.
It was unsightly, as I remember.
Unsightly, yeah.
Okay.
From there, we had a look at the reading, as you remember, about a city you've been to. So that was really cool for you, Venice. And we looked at grammar, non-defining relative clauses.
Okay, and it's time for homework now. And what is the homework for today, Mr. Derill?
Well, on the theme of engineering, for viewers that love engineering, we have an appropriate topic. Write a paragraph describing an innovative project that you know of or you've heard of.
Very interesting one. Okay.
And
maybe we'll read about some things, some projects we've never heard of.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Okay.
And they can send the answers, of course, as you know, to the address on the screen.
Okay. So I think that we have to finish the lesson and say goodbye to the viewers, right?
So we're saying goodbye to engineering as well, and we have an interesting topic for next time, I believe.
My favorite one, as I said, it's medicine, right?
Mm-hmm. It is medicine.
Okay. So stay with us and keep on learning.
And hopefully you'll come back to us with the same enthusiasm for learning.
I'm sure. So goodbye.
Goodbye.